I would like to invite Dave Raw, Chief Operating Officer at Paramount Commerce, to switch on his. Hi, nice to see you.
Hi, everybody.
All right, so Dave, could you briefly tell us about your professional career? Let the folks know what you're doing, how you got started, and maybe say a few words about the company you're representing today.
Sure. I mean, first of all, it's nice to hear that we're the backbone of the gaming industry. And I hope we live up
the backbone of every industry, payments.
unless you're giving things away for free, but yeah. So hi everybody. Thanks for inviting me today, Zoltán. I'm Dave Rowe. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Paramount Commerce, and I head up the kind of innovation, strategy, delivery, and all the kind of operational functions within Paramount. Before I go deeper, I actually joined the kind of gaming industry more than 2 decades ago now. And before Paramount, I was one of the early members at Skrill, which is now part of the PaySafe group. Don't hold that against me. I left quite a long time ago, where we grew the business from a startup to about 1,400 people. Yeah, through Paramount Commerce, still involved in iGaming and sports betting, but now in Canada. As you guys are all fully aware, Ontario recently became regulated earlier in the year, and we've been working extremely closely with the AGCO, iGaming Ontario, etc., and obviously the merchants to ensure that when they go live, that they have the most important payment solutions, meet the regulatory requirements, and everything else set up by the province. So yeah, like I say, happy to be here and representing Paramount Commerce today as well.
Awesome. So now we're talking about basically the centralized system, because later there will be talks also coming from Canada about decentralized payments. So how did you get involved in the iGaming and sports betting industry?
Like I say, I joined Skrill a long time ago, back in 2002, actually. And for those that don't know, they've been involved in the industry from the get-go. The first industry that the Skrill wallet was actually used for was in gaming. That was our path to profitability. First of all in Europe, and then obviously beyond. And yeah, I think from a payment perspective, it's a fascinating industry because it has various challenges which are fairly unique to payments. It's not like you can just throw credit cards on the cashier and job done sort of thing. So yeah, that's what's kept me interested along the way, because we have to keep innovating and improving kind of what we offer to serve this market.
Okay, I guess I ruined this conversation by saying that the payments industry is the backbone of the online gaming industry, because we have this question here now, that what is the role of the payments technology in the online gaming industry?
I mean, fundamentally, we're here to convert the customers that were acquired by the operator into a paying customer, and help them retain those customers. I mean, I was listening to some of the comments before about the acquisition costs and the sheer amount of marketing dollars being spent in the US, obviously compared to UK where I sit. But I think that, going back to what I said before, there's a unique kind of combination of payment challenges that the gaming industry faces. I mean, first of all, you're exchanging value for value. So, if a user deposits $10, then they expect to access that $10 straight away, and that poses, certain risks, challenges with money movement, that kind of thing. And that's both when they deposit or withdraw, right? So there's that. The secondly, credit card processing is difficult in gaming, especially what we've seen in the early stages in Canada. There's certain banks that literally, did not process cards at all in the early stages in Ontario. So it's therefore really important that these operators accept a wide range of payment methods, which you don't really see in other industries that don't have the same kind of credit card challenge. And as I was saying before, there's that acquisition and retention cost, and operators don't want to be spending money on acquisition if they can't then ultimately deposit. So it's vital that that kind of payment conversion, which is one of our key metrics, is high, so that they convert those customers into paying customers. There's a recent survey done by Pay Near Me that there's like 2,000 participants in the US, and 49%, nearly half of players actually, that positive betting experience was most important to them. And a part of that was really about payment. Do they offer the right payment methods? Can I get money in easily? Can I get it out easily? They don't want to think about payment too much, and that's really where we kind of come in. So yeah, I think the role we play, making sure that consumers have the right payment solutions to choose from, that there's high conversion without increasing the risk side of things, and that's key to then ensuring that brand loyalty, acquisition, and retention.
Of course, and you have to keep up always with the trends of technology, of having everything seamless and stuff like that. Yeah. So my next question would be, and in the meantime, while you answer this question, I will switch up my microphone because I need to change some things here. And but I will be here. So how will payments technology help in the new iGaming market like Canada?
Yeah, sure. Let's just be clear, iGaming isn't new in Canada, it's new, regulated in Ontario. So there's already been, for many years now, payment technology has played a crucial role in Canada in general. As I mentioned before, operators have continued even before the regulation in Ontario and thereafter to experience challenges on card acceptance. Payment methods such as interac, which is fast growing in online gaming for some years now, trusted financial service used by many Canadians day in, day out for various purposes. So that's obviously key. We're seeing now that interac on some cashiers is actually the highest used payment method on the cashier. So it's almost more important than cards in some cases. So with the Ontario becoming regulated, the number of operators coming into the market has increased significantly, especially from south of the border. To compete in this market, they need to have the right suite of payment technologies and methods on the cashier. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Just had some difficulties, some technical difficulties here with the connection. So, okay. So, and maybe could you tell us more about what are some of the payment innovations that will be game changers in Canada or overall in the gaming industry?
Sure. So, our kind of core purpose at Paramount is to simplify payments. That's both on the merchant side, for the operators, but also consumers themselves, who, in essence, are the kind of end users of our products. I think one of the game changers that we're currently working on, particularly, is embedded finance. This is one of the kind of biggest, most exciting trends impacting payments right now, not just in Canada, but across the world. In a nutshell, what we're trying to achieve is that the operator can then offer a payment journey that's much closer to their overall customer experience. If we look back 10, 15 years ago, everything was kind of redirects, different look and feel, everything kind of, looks very foreign to a user. And kind of the last thing you want to be doing is making a user think too much about payment. Like consumers, they're not going to get delighted by doing the payment. It's kind of a means to an end because it's kind of a secondary thing within their overall gaming experience. We've been working on features like, in-app or in-game transactions, where the consumer really can make those payments from within the merchant's app, typically experience, without ever leaving the game or the table. I mean, there was some discussion before about whether when you're at a game, being able to make that in-game bet. Well, obviously you need some money at the same time to actually pay for that, and it's not always the balance available. So that's where that kind of especially can kind of come in. And then also on the crypto side, something that we haven't ventured into too much yet, but from what we see in the market, it's very much growing. The actual processing volumes are increasing from the people that we speak to. I think that, yes, it's still highly used as an investment, using the word loosely. But there's definitely more traction from a payment point of view. And there's, I think, especially outside of Canada, it's been growing very, very quickly. So I think it's only a matter of time until it starts to grow quickly, also in Canada.
Do you have any precise date, maybe, when this will be implemented?
From a Paramount Commerce perspective?
Yeah, exactly.
The crypto side, not yet. No, we're still we've got some other things in the fire right now, especially on, like I said, the embedded finance, working on areas like that, trying to ensure that the bank-based payments that we offer, we're able to offer the most streamlined option possible. Again, reducing that friction point, ensuring that end user conversion is as high as possible. The crypto is definitely something that we've been looking at, but isn't the highest priority for us right now.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to also ask, if you are also exploring crypto, because that crypto gaming is also growing at a rapid pace, and Web3 as well, because although the games in Web3 are not that not giving such a great experience for the players because it's too slow and stuff like that, the transactions for payments are still there. And I'm curious about which way do you see the financial service industry going, and is there likely a winner in this industry?
I can't claim to be an expert across the whole of financial services. So
no problem, mostly, just a personal opinion.
I mean, at least on the payment side, historically there's been a few key sort of players, if you like, in terms of banks and gateways and kind of independent payment providers like Paramount Commerce. The banks, the ones that are more nimble and quicker to embrace change, are the ones most likely to be successful. And we've seen the likes of Fifth Third Bank and Cross River in the US that have kind of embraced innovation, being first to market in some cases, offering things like real-time payments for payout transactions, also request to payment on the pay-in side, the deposits. Hasn't been quite so much in Canada. I mean, I think it's renowned for having quite a conservative banking network. But like I say, the ones that are set themselves up to be more nimble are probably going to be the winners. On the gateway side, I think those that offer the wide range of payment methods, look after those geographies that make sense, and offering that kind of seamless integration. Something that, as many people know, is kind of kickstarted by Stripe, and then everybody's kind of jumped on that. Will be successful. And then for independent payment providers, this is where a lot of the innovation kind of comes from, and addressing those real needs in the market, offering proprietary solutions that gives them that competitive advantage. And ultimately, sometimes these companies get acquired, whether it be by banks or gateways or whatever. And then it's really about how well does that technology live on kind of post acquisition. So the winners are those that meet the needs of the consumers and understand that adopting the latest technology is really key to being successful. And in most cases, it requires them to collaborate, right? They kind of all need each other. Gateways need banks, and banks need gateways, and gateways need independent payment processors, and vice versa. So we work with banks as well. So there's, I think, the more that these three groups kind of collaborate, and I've deliberately left off the card schemes because they kind of are always successful. Just as time goes by, they just make more and more and more money. So yeah, that for me, that's also the key, is that collaboration point.
All right, so I would like to take advantage of having Alan Petrilli still here on the call. Alan, can you jump online a bit? Let's see. Okay, probably not hearing us because he mentioned in the earlier panel about the launch of the Canadian sports betting industry, which was so recent, that he said that it took off quite slowly. It wasn't as expected. So maybe can you tell something in terms of a payments provider from the payment side? Did the conservative banking solutions that you mentioned, did it have anything to do with this slow start of the market, of the industry in Canada?
I mean, we were on calls, regular calls with operators, the AGCO, etc. And I think pretty much the number one topic, or one of the number one topics, if you like, each week was about card acceptance. And I think that really hampered some of the launches, which is back to my earlier point, offering the right range of payment solutions on the cashier it's not necessarily, if someone wants to use their card and they don't want to try anything else, they're probably not going to pay, right? We're all kind of creatures of habit. But what we saw, at least from a payments perspective, because there were new players coming in, that it gave us an opportunity to work with them and be successful with their launch. So we don't see every payment, obviously, just the payments that go through our solutions. But it's certainly been a good launch, a strong launch. I think in some cases, and I can't speak to what Alan's point of view was, but maybe there was a expectation from some that it was a bit like launching in a New York or something like that. But like I said before, this is not a new industry in Canada or Ontario, right? This is existing industry that becomes regulated, and you've got a lot of players that are already signed up and using the existing operators that are there. So if you're coming in there completely new, then if you're a DFS merchant, let's say, then you have a user base that you can upsell to. If you don't, then obviously it's going to be harder to start acquiring customers purely through the regular kind of acquisition channels, which is like I say, a challenge if there's already plenty of operators that have been operating in the market for 15, 20 years.
Okay. So yeah, let's also touch base on bank account-based payment solutions. So could you tell us more about what exactly these type of solutions are? And maybe you could tell us why this type of bank account-based payment solutions are prominent in markets such as Canada. So first, let's just do an education about what.
Yeah, sure. So I think bank-based payments have been around in the gaming industry across the world for a long time, especially in Europe, where I've had quite some experience, with the likes of open banking and various different local payment options, which are well used and well known within individual countries. In Canada, like I said before, the most used bank-based option is interac. People recognize it almost as much, if not more, compared to the card logos. These are MasterCard, and with it being a real-time or almost real-time banking rail, users can get access to their funds almost instantly, whether it's deposits or withdrawals. And it comes with very, very little risk. So the customer is literally pushing that transaction to ultimately to the operator. So that doesn't come with that risk like an EFT, which is similar to ACH in the US, where you're having to pull the money from the customer's bank account, and there's a clearing time and everything else. So first of all, like I say, interac, and as I mentioned before, we're seeing that interac is actually in some cases used more than any other payment method that is on the actual cashier. And we also see that from our user testing. So when we do user testing with different payment methods on the cashier, we'll find that interac is chosen almost before anything else. But one of the challenges, also, to some degree, with interac is that there are some nuances where, for example, the limits aren't as high as other clearing rails. So there's we also provide like an instant bank transfer solution that runs on these EFT rails that I was talking about before. We've partnered with Flinks, which is effectively like the Plaid of Canada, to offer that bank account verification, ensuring the consumer is who they say they are. They have access to that bank account. They have sufficient balance to complete the transaction. We also add to that sophisticated risk management with machine learning to also score that transaction. So going back to my previous point, really ensuring that we get it right, that balance between that conversion and the kind of risk associated with a transaction. So when a card fails, which it often does, then there are other options bank-based that consumers can choose from, and we've seen great success offering these kind of interac and instant bank transfer with merchants in Canada.
And why is it just such popularity in Canada?
Why is interac so popular?
Yeah,
it's been around for like 30, 40 years. Right? Okay. So, and if you go to a point of sale even in a shop, you'll often see interac as on the point of sale machine, right? Okay. If you want to, when you log into your online banking, you'll always have an interac option if you want to send money to a friend, or you want to settle a debt or something like that. So it's really the way that consumers have been paying each other and to merchants, predominantly, not always online, but also offline, for decades, basically. So if you ask the average Canadian down the street, what payment methods do you use, almost all of them will say interac alongside maybe their debit card, credit card. Like that's how they pay.
Okay, so that's why they're popular.
Yeah.
All right, so let's also touch base on innovation, and we can talk about fintech, because this is something that has been trending for a few 4, 5, maybe 6 years now. And do you think that fintech, do you think of fintech? I just want to ask if you think about fintech as an innovation, a future of money, or a mode of bringing a social change?
I think it's probably not one on its own. I think if you look at paytech specifically, it probably errs towards the future of money. I mean, the kind of incumbents of, let's say, the fintech before fintech, because there were financial technology companies before it became a thing. And they look towards the new players in the market as how what is the future? How do people going to pay or get paid or purchase financial products, whatever it is in the future? And as end users are becoming more and more kind of tech savvy, the increasing choosing of these technologies to complete what was in the past a laborious task and today more kind of seamless. So, building those bridges between people and businesses has been key. And although, I would say that there have been other factors involved in what going to the future money rather than just kind of technology. I mean, if you look at what happened during COVID, there was this huge kind of migration towards digital payments.
Yeah.
And, and shops and businesses saying, I don't want to accept cash anymore, right? Which is really, obviously the technology was there for that to happen, but it wasn't the technology that drove that. And then if you see what's happening since this cost of living crisis has been taking place, you see people going back towards cash because it's easier for them to kind of budget. So having those options for consumers has always been key, whether it be a cashier on a gaming site or down at your local supermarket. That there needs to have those options. If you look at kind of fintech more broadly, maybe that skews more towards social change. I mean, access, education, people with mobile wallets has been a game changer in places like Africa, where being able to create kind of mass financial inclusion for the unbanked. Things like wealth tech have made investing in the stock market more accessible for casual investors that want to easily make decisions and so on. So yeah, I don't think it's one necessarily or the other. I think different areas of fintech have probably go down slightly different routes, and some of it even crosses over. Yeah, it's definitely a force for good in most cases. What we've seen from the rise and increased investment in fintech, for sure.
Yeah, these are some great inputs, and I also want to ask you about neobanks. What is your opinion about neobanks?
Most of them are losing money. I mean, I think that it kind of depends a little bit in terms of the jurisdiction that the neobanks are operating in. The barrier of entry for some of them is quite high. In the US, for example, the regulatory requirements are much higher than what you can do in Europe because it's easier to access things like SEPA and issuing IBANs and so on is much easier. You don't even need a banking license to kind of do that in Europe. So it kind of depends a little bit on the jurisdiction. I think that the ones that have been successful are the ones that have been able to offer as many different services as possible and almost collaborating with fintechs, if you like, to make it easy for them to do that, right? Whether it's opening an account within minutes. For example, I had my own business from way back when I was doing some consulting. I had to go into the branch to complete that, right? Whereas now I can do it through an app and I've got a business bank account. Offering things like crypto, like purchasing stocks and shares, insurance, simple, easy money transfer, things like so. I think the more that they can offer as a one-stop shop, like these kind of super fintech apps, is the key, because then you're able to really attract users, and if you're offering very, very cheap FX, you can then make up for that in kind of other areas.
Yeah.
But I still think there's probably a way to go where a lot of getting that critical mass of users or consumers that are prepared to always put their salary into these banks, the neobanks. I think that especially for the younger generations, I think it's probably an easier decision. But again, that's not where they're going to be ultimately successful in the long term. They have to attract a wider range of consumers. So.
Yeah, exactly. And just not to mention that large brand that is known worldwide, they have recently launched a service for businesses as well, business accounts. And like you said, you don't have to go to the branch. They just send you. You just just one click away from opening an account for your company and working in multiple jurisdictions. I don't know how the gaming industry will embrace neobanks, because I don't see that there's a lot of options for that in terms of cash out. I mean, because you can deposit from a neobank account, it's no problem. But I think in terms of cash out, there's still a long way to go there because of compliance. And just as closing questions, we can also talk about cryptocurrency, because you mentioned that you guys have been looking into that as well. What do you think? Is there everybody says the future is decentralized, and sometime cryptocurrency, digital currencies are going to take over. So what's your opinion on this?
I think it's we're a long way off from that, from my perspective. I think that they certainly have a role to play, and that role will increase over time. I think that there's also so much volatility still in cryptocurrency that scares a lot of people off. Even stable coins have turned out to be not so stable in some cases.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that if when it starts to become a bit more mainstream as a way of not just investment but method of payment, then we may see that drives some additional adoption of cryptocurrencies, not just for people that have the time to really spend on making sure that they lose out big time from 1 hour to the next. I think the future is certainly there, and it's not going away anywhere anytime soon. As like I said, if it starts to become more mainstream, then we will see better adoption and more stability.
And regulation, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So as a closing question, I would like to get your thoughts on how fintech and traditional banks or banks can collaborate, and is there a future in there?
I touched on a little bit this point before, but if you look historically, the relationship between banks and fintechs has been pretty bumpy. I've been in the business long enough to remember the financial crisis in 2008. And the banks just all ran away from fintechs. I didn't want to bank anybody. We still see a bit of that. I mean, it's not like everyone's open doors, come and work with us. Banks have traditionally been focused on the kind of consumer to merchant payments through cards. So their issuing and acquiring businesses were kind of their core business when it came to payments. I think that they obviously worked closely with some fairly large innovators like Stripe and Apple and Google, and many gateways, even acquired some gateways of their own to kind of fuel growth on the kind of card side. I think that alternative payments like bank-based payments like Paramount still managed to strive, but to a lesser extent in terms of bank collaborations. It's not been quite so close. Of course, there are some exceptions with the likes of, like I said before, Cross River and Fifth Third in the US, their collaboration with fintechs has really been important because they don't have the scale and the innovation to kind of make that a real kind of market-driven adoption, because they can provide the rails and the scale, but not go out and do all of the deals and have all the contacts and the sales drive and turn that rail into something that actually works in the real world. In summary, I think as always, the banks and PaySecs kind of need each other, and this is probably starting to see spread more and more outside of your kind of traditional card processing. Outside of payments, we're also seeing that fintech and bank collaboration can be mutually beneficial. If you look at Plaid in the US and Flinks in Canada, they act as an enabler for collaboration, and we're seeing improved technical connections between the likes of Flinks and Plaid with those banks. And as I mentioned before, we've partnered with Flinks because, excuse me, they really enable that connection to all the Canadian financial institutions. So, today I would say there's much better relationships between banks and fintechs, but I think the banks are still fairly choosy about who they work with. Let's put it mildly.
All right. So thank you so much, Dave, for this awesome inputs on the payments side. And now we move on to the next panel discussion. Thanks, Dave, for joining.